As children, we used to cry so much because we think everyone is our friend. And that is by my beautiful friend, Bimpe. Hello, welcome. Those of you who are returning listeners of the Toy Talks podcast, you know you're loved, you know you're appreciated, and you know you're going to get the real. And those new listeners, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Toy Talks podcast journey. And as part of the journey, I will always encourage you, if you haven't already, to listen to previous episodes just to get up to speed about what Toy Talks is all about, and also just to get used to me, because some people may find my direct honesty slightly uncomfortable and often been described as slightly offensive. But those are for those sensitive people who clearly have an issue with a nice dose of honesty. So this episode is about discernment and understanding discernment and how to kind of work and practice discernment in our workplaces. But before you can practice discernment in your workplaces, you need to be able to do it in your personal life and at home. I put it to you that when I developed a consciousness, a conscious understanding of self, I then understood discernment and I was able to practice discernment. And more importantly, I was able to walk in the truth and the knowledge and the appreciation that I was not only walking in my purpose, but I had a clear understanding of who I am. Because people around you will always tell you who you are. And those people who tell you who you are don't know who they are. And to be in control of oneself and be able to develop the understanding and develop the gift of discernment, because I believe it is a gift that not all people have. But once you are able to develop it and utilize it in your personal life, you are then able to utilize it and use it at work, where it's so much more important to be able to discern, because there is a lot of people in the workplaces walking around in sheep's clothing. In fact, in your personal life, if you're able to discern, if you are able to understand how characters work and interact, when you go into the workplace, you'll be able to put all the things that you've learned from your personal life into practice. Now, why am I talking about discernment? Because it's about having a clear understanding. And I wanted to take it a step further, and I thought, let me ask Google, because everybody asks me loads of questions and I direct them to Google. But I asked Google the meaning of discernment. Hey Google, what is the definition of discernment?
Here's the definition of discernment: the ability to judge well.
The ability to judge well. Do you understand why it's important that you're able to practice discernment in your personal life? Because in the workplace, you're working with lions, tigers, and bears, and sharks. And if you are not able to discern and understand people's characters and develop a clear consciousness of understanding your own intuition, I believe everybody has intuition. So when you walk into an organization, or this new normal now where we're remote working, it's understanding people's characters and understanding how your energy either attracts or repels certain characters, and learning how to trust in your judgment. I think that if you do not consciously understand the need for discernment, you are always going to be walking into issues in the workplace head first. So let's use our daily lives as our playing grounds, our training grounds, to be able then to acquire the skills required to go into the workplace, navigate it successfully by identifying who those wolves in sheep's clothing are, who those troublemakers are, the gossip queens and kings, the lick asses, and understanding how to manage those characters while still being able to successfully continue a trajectory in success, or to success in the workplace. Now, if you follow me on social media, if you don't follow me on Instagram, you really need to, and Snapchat. Instagram is Toy_Washington and Toy_Talks, and Snapchat is Toy Washington, all one word. And the reason I say that is because I share a lot of stuff on there as well. And things happen daily, and I can quickly snap them or put them on Instagram. And if you had been following me on my Instagram, there was a clear example of discernment. Now, I'm very, very careful what I share. But if I'm going to share, I share the truth. That's me, as it happens. And there has often been people who have critiqued me. that's fine. No, people can critique. That's life, right? When you put yourself in a position where people have access to you, they feel that they can critique you. But when you critique them, then oh my God, heaven breaks loose. But I digress. But I get critiques. Toya, so basically, somebody who I had known since I was in sixth form college and tried to maintain a friendship with a few years ago, I had to cut her off, and we can get into the detail of that. But I had posted a email that she had sent. I'd blocked out her name because I do believe in anonymity until you tell me that your anonymity is not important to you. In any case, she sent me an email last week. Well, by the time you listen to this, she sent it in August. And when I got this message, I knew exactly what it was. It was a fishing expedition. A classic example of idle hands making for light work. You see, the devil is busy and the devil is active. Now, just because people may disguise themselves as friends or long lost, when you have made a decision about something and someone, you need to be able to stick with it. Remember, I told you, you need to learn discernment in your personal lives to be able to utilize those skills in your professional life. Now, this is somebody, like I said, I met her in sixth form college. She was actually a friend of my cousin's. I'm not going to go into too much detail about everything, but just tell you, just a snapshot to contextualize this email that I am going to read to you. And basically, as we grew older, I just noticed that she was definitely somebody who we got on very well, but definitely somebody who definitely really, I felt like she kept a lot of issues that she had towards me inside. And as we were growing and maturing, I was beginning to see them come out. And I would often say to her, if we have issues, let's talk about it. But rather than talk about it, she sought to take joy out of my downfall. So anything negative that would happen, you would see almost like a joyous expression on her face. Anybody I was dating, she ensured that she befriended them. But I saw it as, this is my friend just trying to have my back, because when I was a lot younger, I definitely would always see the good in everybody, rather than look at the signs and allow people's actions to testify of who they were. Instead, I was so desperate to ensure and to keep friends that I would overlook things that, quite frankly, I shouldn't have. But I was young, so I never looked at it as deeply as that. And then, ever so often, there would be the dig and, the things that, to be quite honest, as a friend, you wouldn't say. They're less celebratory. They were more negative. And then she started telling me that she always was having dreams about me. I've spoken about this on previous podcasts where she would have dreams, but they would always be negative. So there'll be times maybe we wouldn't speak for a period of time, and then her way of reconnecting with me is to tell me she's had a dream. Now, if you are from an African background, you understand the importance of dreams in our culture, but not everybody that tells you they dream, do they actually dream? Some people use it as a weapon, and this person actually would do that and would really kind of utilize that vulnerability in my character. But it was always negative, and I always felt, every time I spoke to her about these dreams, my heart would literally race, and I would literally feel like, why is it that she always dreams negatively about me? There's never anything positive. And I've often confronted her with that, and she would tell me, she's just the messenger, don't shoot the messenger. And of course, if you're truly believing that this person is your friend, you're believing these dreams and her kind of sending you these messages are from a positive place. But it just continued. And then I just noticed that things just weren't happening for me. Like, the blessings were not coming. And anytime she was around me, it felt like a negative cloud of force. However, my character, loyalty is one of the things that really mean a lot to me. And I had a falling out with a friend, someone that, this particular girl. So this girl, we're going to call her Harriet, the one that keeps having the dreams, we'll call her Harriet. So I had a falling out with a friend called Estelle. And the falling out was really bad, okay? And I knew that Estelle and I couldn't recover from that. And I had told Harriet about it. And Harriet said, yeah, Estelle tried to reach out to me to speak to you on her behalf. And I said, you know what, Harriet, this is one of those times where you just need to stay out of it because you don't know Estelle. okay? And you don't know kind of the in and outs of this falling out, but it's something that, to me personally, I feel like, be careful how you fall out with friends, because it could determine whether you actually be able to make up with them. And I didn't realize that behind my back, Harriet was forging a friendship and an alliance with Estelle. And as soon as I found out, I realized that Harriet and I couldn't be friends anymore. So slowly I began to distance myself from Harriet. And then Harriet would always, ever so often, reach out. And in order not to be rude or impolite, I would always respond. But every time she reached out, it was always about a dream. This is the person that would befriend all my ex-boyfriends. Yeah, you heard me correctly. This is a person that rejoiced. And I have emails of hatred when we had maybe disagreed about something. And I kept all of them. And one day I read all of them and I said, this person hates me. Because when you fall out with friends, they shouldn't be telling you things that you've told them in confidence as part of an argument to throw it back in your face. And I realized that in order for me to realize and appreciate true friends, I had to get rid of people who were masquerading as friends. And distancing myself from Harriet became a complete lock-off. Now remember, I'm just giving you a high level summary of kind of what happened, just to give you a bit of context. So the last time I spoke to Harriet was 5 years ago. I've blocked her from every social media platform. She can't call me, she can't text, she can't IM message me. Yeah, I cut her completely off. And when I cut her off, it was like the door of blessings that had been wedged shut completely opened. My life completely changed. I met the love of my life. I acquired assets I never thought I'd be able to. My life completely transformed. And I realized that somebody who had been masquerading as a friend was actually the gatekeeper of all my blessings. And I say the gatekeeper, the devil's gatekeeper. The devil had employed this gatekeeper to ensure that I would never realize my full potential, to ensure that she would crush my self-esteem. But more importantly, her disloyalty would be so bad that I would have no choice but to recognize that what God had been showing me, because God was merciful to me at the time. Because I would say, show me. And every time I say, show me, within 24 hours, God would show up. And I would ignore it, hoping for the best. And then it got to a point where it was just too much. So I haven't spoken to Harriet in 5 years time. In 5 years, sorry. And my life has changed. I am in a completely different space. But more importantly, I've grown up so much as a person. And I think part of that has been opening up my heart to receive my purpose and walking in that purpose. And more importantly, surrounding myself with people who not only support me, but more importantly, are my safe space, my critics, my friends, my family. And I've definitely been able to accept my flaws and grow in who I am as a person and realize who I am. So in understanding who I am, realizing who I am, I'm also developing the ability to judge well and trusting my judgment. When my spirit tells me something, being able to understand that that is my sixth sense, my intuition protecting me, and therefore respecting it. So today is a Thursday. So on Monday, I received this email, and I did share it on Instagram. But for those of you who haven't seen it or maybe need to remember, I'll read it out to you. So the subject line is, Hola, Madam T, how far? Hope you and the family are well and safe. And before you ask, yes, I saw you in my dreams. Laugh out loud. Just wanted to see that you are safe in this new normal that we are now in. Anyway, it would be good to catch up. It's been a while. Speak soon, Harriet. Now, on the face of it, one may look at that and say, oh, but Twitch is just checking in. It's been 5 years. But my question to you is, when somebody has blocked you from every avenue of communication, why do you think sending an email after 5 years is going to change that? You're so concerned about my well-being. My well-being is at the forefront of your mind that the pandemic started in March. We are now in August. You have to be able to discern, the ability to judge well. Because if you judge well in your personal life, this will be the training ground for you to then go on and be able to judge well in your working life, where those sharks don't even have disguises often, they come as themselves. So when I got this email, I shared it on social media, and I will tell you what I said when I shared it. Dear Black women, when navigating your career and the ups and downs of life, I always talk about energies on the podcast, especially on season 2, episode 10. This is a person I cut off a few years ago, always texting and calling me to tell me she's had a dream about me. Her dreams are never ever positive. One day I asked her why she thinks that she has been chosen to have such dreams and why these dreams are never positive. She replied, I'm just a messenger. She's right, the devil's messenger. When I removed her from my life, it was like the wedge that kept the door of blessings closed finally opened. The devil will always try to access you when all avenues have been closed. She's resorted to an email after 5 years. I take my spirituality seriously and I keep my circle small and tight. The devil's need to access you is often relentless. I have developed my spirituality and allowed my intuition to guide me. Dear devil's advocate, access denied. The pandemic is not an excuse to continue the devil's work. Hashtag protect your energy. On a spiritual level, I have really been grappling with religion and understanding God and really questioning if God exists and questioning the Bible and where the Bible comes from and really tapping into my ancestry, how things used to be done in Africa before the white man, the colonizer, introduced religion and the Bible. So I've been going through my own spiritual journey, and I definitely feel that whenever you are going through something or you're engaging in something, the devil always shows up because the devil never sleeps. He's always busy. Now, you guys may be thinking, well, how do you deal with something like that? Remember, I started this off by saying that you need to consciously and actively seek to walk in your purpose. I've spoken on different episodes, walking through the career wilderness, and other episodes where I talk about the importance of developing a sense of identity in who you are. No one can tell me about me. I know me. I know me really well. And I've taken the time to really develop my understanding in my spirituality and my intuition when something doesn't feel right, trusting myself enough and trusting my feelings enough that they will never see me wrong. Now, in the workplace, there are people who are going to question the foundation of who you are. And that can come in the form of a manager or a colleague questioning your ability to do your job, questioning your credentials, questioning why you're even there. And we know that that comes from, I would say, number one, jealousy, but number two, white people do not want to see us, especially in organizations which are where we are senior or where we are starting our career. And sometimes it's just because they can see the greatness that sits within us. So they feel it's their job to destabilize us. So this is why I say, in your personal life, developing who you are in an understanding and walking in the journey of development is so important, because when you go into the workplace, you have to put on a hat, and we wear different hats, but in the workplace, you have to come with a hat of confidence. You have to come with the hat of discernment. And more importantly, you need to come with a level of strength, because the white man will always attempt to destabilize you from the course of your greatness. I'm not sitting here saying I'm above mistake or I'm better than. That's not what I'm saying, because I am not. I'm a wretched, dirty sinner. But I know who I am. When I look in the mirror, I'm happy with the reflection that looks back at me. I know the reflection that looks back at me. No one, not even my mother, not my siblings, not my aunts, not my uncles, cousins, or otherwise, that can tell me about me or who know me more than me. because I understand my responsibility to myself and my own mental health. I understand the responsibility. If I decide I want to be successful, I understand the responsibility required to be able to handle and walk in that success. Success is a choice. But it starts with developing and understanding who you are as a person. Because who you are will always be called into question by people who believe that they are the gatekeepers of success. So when you are walking in those offices, when you are on Zoom remotely working, you're constantly feeling like you have to prove yourself. But if you are confident in who you are and walk in your purpose and allow yourself to develop the skills of discernment, you soon realize that the only person you have to prove anything to is yourself. And you work and grow in confidence, fully understanding and embracing the greatness that sits within you. To be able to show up, to be able to proactively and productively be able to work, you need to be confident. And that confidence is going to come from understanding who you are. The moment you allow somebody to define who you are, you have lost. People attempt to define who you are by using their ability to provoke you. Yeah, to provoke you. I remember in a workplace that I used to work at. Now, if you meet me in person, you'll be shocked because some people would assume that I'm quite tall. I'm actually 5'4". I'm tiny. My mum used to call me small but mighty. So I used to go into this particular workplace, and in the team, I was the shortest. And the smallest, I was tiny. And I was the only black girl in the office. So a lot of them would judge me by how they see me. Now, my mum always used to say, if you judge Toya by how you see her, you've lost, because the assumption is I'm meek and mild. So the hiring manager, who was my direct line manager, one day we were having a team meeting and she decided to give me a name. That name was Trouble. Oh, hi, Trouble. Oh, what are you having for lunch today, Trouble? Oh, Trouble, are you going to the canteen? And at no point did I ever correct her. And do you know why? Because I just wanted to be accepted. So if it meant she had a nickname for me, at least she recognized and noticed me, or so I thought. What I didn't know and understand at that point of my career is that she was labeling me according to her unconscious and her conscious bias. And because I was still developing who I was as a person, I wasn't able to judge well that that nickname was not only negative, but that nickname one day will bite me in the buttocks. And it did. Because in the office, I remember there was an issue with a particular contract. Now, this is quite early on in my career. And when it was escalated to my boss responded in the email and CC'd me in the email. Hey, Trouble, this has come to my attention. Yeah, this is an email where somebody has escalated to something to her and she has referred to me as Trouble. And she began to go through the escalation. And with that came some actions that I would need to do. Now, as I was reading this email, I was so uncomfortable. But because I had bought into this name, Trouble, I was not in a position to now correct her because for so long I'd been laughing and kikiing, knowing that this was really burning me. So why now have I got an issue with it? Her assumption would be, well, it's because now something's been escalated. It wouldn't be because that is actually not my name. But if I knew who I was as a person, I would have corrected her when she called me a name that didn't belong to me. I wasn't using my judgment because I didn't know who I was. So my ability to judge well was skewed because I didn't know who I was. And I didn't even realize I was still going on that journey of self-discovery. So before I could respond to that email, the person who had escalated to my boss wrote back. Hopefully Trouble can sort this out. So now I have been labelled. I've been labelled. And it's not a label that's confined to the team. This is a label now that extends to the business. And you know what? I had to carry the L. Do you know why? because I didn't use my judgment well enough when I had the opportunity to. This had to be an example to me that every time I was called trouble, all those feelings that it conjured up, I had to carry it and understand for next time that when somebody calls me a name that doesn't belong to me, when somebody provokes me, I have to check it at conception. You don't check it when it's been embedded. And more importantly, in the workplace, people's roles there are to provoke certain people. It's not everybody that's going there to do a job, going there to develop their skills, going there to develop their careers. Some people's job is just to provoke others because either they have extra time on their hands or maybe they're just trying to get a reaction from you. And as a black woman, we are well aware of the stereotypes associated with any black woman that shows any form of emotion that is perceived as negative. So you can't walk in to a situation and set yourself up and then afterwards realize what you've done because you haven't developed a good consciousness of judgment and expect then not to be labeled a troublemaker or labeled aggressive. I lasted in that organization for a year. And when I left, I was angry, I was upset, but more importantly, I was disappointed. Because rather than the name trouble just being labeled and called by the boss, it was now a generic name that was used for me. And we know the definition of trouble. Now, my question is, how come no white people were called trouble or called anything negative? Why was it the only black person in the team that was called that name? What was it about my characteristics that led her to believe I was trouble? After all, I was still very new into the industry. I was finding myself, for all intents and purposes, I wasn't very confident and I wasn't very loud and expressive. I put it to you that the color of my skin, being a black woman or be anything associated with blackness for her was trouble. And therefore she was then using her stereotype, her preconceived stereotype to label me. Because if she labels me trouble, she calls me trouble, then she's able to control me and control my narrative. Do you understand why developing discernment is so important in your personal life? So that you are able to then understand and actively work in discernment in the workplace. Now, when people attempt to provoke you, it's for a reaction, and it's always for a negative reaction. People are not provoking you for a positive reaction, because you shouldn't have to provoke somebody for a positive reaction. You could just ask somebody a question or position it in such a way that you would get a positive outcome. Now, this email from Harriet, some of you may think, well, Toya, maybe after 5 years she was trying to reconnect. And I put it to you that yes, she was, because she wanted to find out, what have you been doing in the last 5 years? Because when I was last in your life, all those doors were closed. So I need to understand which ones are open so that the devil that rests and sits in her can actively attempt either to close them or to destabilize me. Because that is the only thing that she has ever given. 3 days later, so that was on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're at Thursday now, I get this email. Now, her initial email, I didn't respond. And I said to people, listen, I get paid to argue, and the white man calls it negotiate, right? I get paid for that. I don't negotiate with my friends, partly because I don't get paid for it. But secondly, because I have healthy relationships with my friends. I can count my friends on one hand, and each and every one of them will tell you and testify of the type of friend I am to them. And I can testify of the type of friend they are to me. Healthy relationships. We don't always agree, but we have discussions. There is respect, there is love, and there is loyalty. So I got this email. Subject line, hola. Hello, Toya. Believe it or not, I already knew what would have gone through your head when you saw my email. Laugh out loud. The problem with you is you always think the worst in people. Always, I think she means anyways. I only wanted to see how you were doing, but that's fine. No need to response. I think she means respond. I'm glad you are well. Take care of yourself and I'll check up on you again in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, what I got from this is she's probably dyslexic and doesn't even really know it. But also, this is quite a sinister email. This is 3 days later. So we've gone from Madam T to Hello Toya. We've gone from I knew what would go through your head to you don't need to respond. Bitch, I never responded. Who are you talking to here? Because it seems like you're having a conversation with somebody. And I put it to you, it's probably the devil that's dwelling inside of you that is so angry that your plan hasn't come into fruition. This is a bit mad. But can you see the devil? How can you know what problem I have or don't have if I haven't spoken to you in about 4 to 5 years? Can you see where silence is the loudest form of communication? I then posted this on my Instagram because, listen, when I'm teaching you guys, when I'm showing you guys, and when I'm walking in my purpose and demonstrating things, I talk from a position of experience. I want you guys to see this. So I wrote on my Instagram, I cut her off 4 to 5 years ago and completely removed her from my life. Her negativity, her negative dreams, then the doors of blessings opened. I ignored her email. When the door is closed, it is closed. When the devil is frustrated, here is the follow-up email I received today. And then I put that her email up. And then I said, I get paid to argue over contracts. The white man calls it negotiation. I do not argue with people, especially those who have deliberately sought to destabilize my path. Can you see the devil? Her dream brought her to email me, but my silence has brought out who she is. Protecting your energy is real life. Silence is the best answer to a fool. Block, blocked, blocker. Can you see wolf in sheep's clothing? When the devil is coming, he comes in a disguise. It is your job to protect your energy and your space. This mad person is angry at herself. No one knows me or my mind better than me. Someone who doesn't get the message will send another email in 2 to 3 years' time. Can you see the persistence of devil's right hand? Discernment. Question 1, 5 marks. Why didn't her dream tell her that there would be no response from me and the door was closed? Question 2, 5 marks. Why does her dreams never tell her that I will win the lottery? Black women, we deserve the best. We deserve all the flowers, but unless you work on your ability to discern, you will inadvertently block your own blessings. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. When you read the second email, it's provocation. Remember, we spoke about when you know who you are, when you walk in your consciousness and your path and you trust in your intuition, you are able to see when people are trying. This email is trying to provoke me to respond. I already knew what was in your head. Bitch, how you know what's in my head? How? A whole 5 years, baby girl. What do you know? You don't know anything about me. You don't know where I've been. The shadow of the valley of the shadow of death that I have walked through. The hot coals of life that I have been through. You don't know me, bitch. When I attempted to commit suicide and take my own life because I had reached the low of the low, God said, no, my daughter, come back, come back. Come back, my child. This is not the end. There is a purpose upon your life. You see this edge that you're on here? This edge is to show you that I am the Alpha and the Omega. This edge that you're at, you're standing alone, is to show you that you are walking in your own path. And your right hand is me. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can ever tell you what the brink and the edge looks like, my dear. Because when you come back from that edge and you walk in your purpose, fully understanding and accepting who you are, fully knowing who you are and trusting in who you are. Because at the edge stood nobody. You stood there by yourself. Therefore, when you walk in your purpose, you do so by yourself. When she said in the email, I only wanted to see how you're doing. You see, when someone's trying to manipulate you, they will turn it to make it seem like you are the problem. When somebody's trying to manipulate you, they will make out that they are trying to be the best person for you. And in fact, it's you and yourself that is rejecting for no reason. You're not a good person. Dun, 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 dun. But unless you develop a consciousness of self and you know who you are, you will then not be able to allow these people to throw you off the course of where you're supposed to go. Remember, I said, when you practice discernment in your personal life, you are able to then practice it in your working life. Because in your personal life, they're emotions, isn't it? You make choices, they're investments of time that you've chosen. In the workplace, you're thrown together with people you don't know and you're expected to survive and navigate. The most sinister thing, take care of yourself, I'll check up on you again in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, that almost sounds like a threat, to be honest, but let's take it in its literal sense. The devil never stops working. The devil is always busy. So what she's saying is, I'll be back. Because the devil will always try. Silence is the best answer to afford. You know when you want to speak loudly, it's not rah, 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 rah. When I was younger, I used to use my rah, rah, rah. Nah, it's silence. My silence basically says, fuck off. My silence basically says, fuck you. My silence basically says, go fuck yourself. My silence basically says, get the fuck out of here. And I don't even have to say the word fuck. I just need to be silent. Because I know who I am. So when you say to me, you knew what was going on in my head, bitch, you didn't know a damn thing. Because no one sends an email quite like the one she did initially for it not to receive a response. But she feels entitled. The arrogance that dwells in the devilish spirit that is consuming her is arrogant enough to think she deserves a response. Who the fuck are you? What are you? When I cut her off, my career soared. When I cut her off, less than a year later, I met the love of my life. When I cut her off, I moved home. When I cut her off, I acquired assets. When I cut her off, I bought my car. When I cut her off, the cloud subsided. I can see clearly now. Your job is to protect your energy and your space, because when things are not happening for us, when we are plowing our time to apply for that job, when we are going for those interviews, when we're working in organizations and we're not going up and we're not going down, we're standing still. Often we critique what is happening around us, and it's the right thing to do. But how many of us spend time and understanding on a spiritual level what is actually happening? Now, I would always describe myself as somebody who was born in a Christian household. My father used to be a pastor. So I grew up as a pastor's daughter until my father stepped down because he was unwell. And my father really introduced me to religion, right? And when I got to 18, he says, I've introduced you to God. Now you develop your own relationship with God. It was probably the best thing my dad ever did. And as I've grown up, I've really tried to understand spirituality and be more spiritual and really kind of honing in on my intuition and trusting myself. At 35 years old, I can tell you I trust myself implicitly. I don't always get it right, but that makes me human. And I'm okay to take the lessons out of the decisions that I make that I shouldn't have made, or learning from my mistakes. But what I can never do is go back to how I used to be. Because when you are taking bullshit, you are considered a good person. When you are not rising up and speaking up against something maybe you're not happy with, or friendship circles that are not serving you, you are a problem. Because you're seeking something more for yourself and you're seeking to protect your energy. Protecting your energy has to come from you. It's a you thing, it's not a them thing. And I often ask people, when blessings occur in your life, what is happening in your life at that precise time? Who is around you? When your blessings seem to be stuck and not reaching you, what is happening in your life? What is happening around you? Who is around you? Who are you able to confide in? Who is celebrating? Who is praying for you? Who is celebrating you? Who is lifting you up? Discernment is the ability to judge well. So we develop our judgment over time, obviously, as you mature and you get older and start making life decisions. But you're an adult now. You are considered an adult. In your workplaces, you are an adult. A young adult maybe, but you're still an adult. Do you know that peace and discernment are related? In order to be able to judge well, you have to be in a relative state of peace. I didn't realise that until I got a lot older. And my need for peace was heightened. Because I didn't have peace in myself, especially, I think growing up, I never really had peace in myself, but losing a parent really does something to you, the core and the foundation of who you are. So I was always seeking for peace. And I think when I came to understand that my father had to pass on, I then began to understand peace and therefore embrace it. So anybody around me that didn't kind of represent peace was removed. Anyone who unsettled my spirit and therefore my spirit wasn't at peace was removed. So there are people that you will not see around me ever, and you better understand that it's not a coincidence, it's a decision I have made, because they are destabilizing my peace. They have proven to me time and time again that my judgment is correct. And just because you do not understand something doesn't mean it's not right. It's spiritual, baby. Assumption is the benchmark of downfall. Assumption. Making an assumption baselessly. This girl has assumed that she knows what's going through my head. This Harriet has assumed that the problem with me is I always see the worst in people. I see the worst in you because you have only ever shown me the worst. That's not an assumption, that's a fact. So when I didn't know how to pray, and often when I don't know how to pray, I say to God, show me the things you want me to see. Develop my ability to discern and give me the tools to deal with the things that you show me. That is how I pray. Because when I pray like that, it becomes very obvious to me that when I ask to see something, I will see it. So can you see now why I talk about using life, your personal life, as a training ground for the workplace? So I want you now to tell me who in the workplace can provoke me. It's not like they won't attempt, but the thing is I never show up for the provocation party. I'm not part of that shit. So when I go into the workplace and someone makes a comment about my hair, my clothes, the way I write, my accent, the way I sound, I'm able to use my judgment to know that this person's trying to provoke a reaction from me. So about 2 years ago, when I walked into the office and a colleague of mine says, "Oh, your eyebrows are very prominent." I said, "Yes, just like your stomach." And I smiled. Yeah, I said it. That's me. Because you see the same way and the same tone you're using to provoke me. Me too, I will use it to say it back. And to believe me, as soon as I identified his character, I always knew that there would come a point where he would outwardly provoke. Because when people are provoking you, it doesn't start overnight. They build up the momentum and the confidence to be able to think they can say certain things because they are hoping, they are assuming. And remember, we said the assumption is the benchmark of a downfall. And I'm happy to allow that person to assume what they want. And that assumption could be based on you, it could be based on a preconceived stereotype. But if you come for me, I will meet you where you are. You're just not going to get what you think you are going to get. And when I think about it deeply, it's exhausting. It's actually tiring that one has to figure out oneself. You navigate in life, then you go into the workplace, you're trying to find yourself, and then you're trying to deal with the social aspects. But this is why I have the podcast, because I'm trying to alleviate some of that stress from your shoulders. No one did that shit for me. I did it all the hard way. But when I'm developing and using this podcast, it's so that I can give you another school of thought, give you another perspective, allow you to understand that you're not crazy, you're not the gaslighting that you're experiencing is just that, it's gaslighting, and you're legitimately allowed to feel how you feel. But when you walk into the workplace, remember I've always told you, no one cares about your emotions, least of all when you're a black woman. They don't give a flying fuck. You walk in the workplace and say, oh, boss, I've got a bellyache. Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. But if it's a white woman, they'll send her to the medical room or send her home. That's been happening from when we was in school days. But developing your ability to be able to judge well, when you walk into an organization, you have a phone call, and maybe you're having a Zoom call at work and it's a video Zoom call, and every time you talk, somebody's raising their eyebrows. You need to note those things. You need to be able to use your judgment enough to see patterns of behavior and then alter and amend your behavior or your response according to what your judgment tells you. I didn't tell you to change. You can still manage and navigate work by first understanding who you're going to work with, and therefore understand how you are going to manage these characters. If you know somebody has been showing you signs and what's the word for it? They are accelerating in their madness. You know that it's only a matter of time before they display their madness to you. And you need to be ready. You need to be on job. So when I was contracting in a particular organization, and I was brought in to do a particular project, but because I have a developed judgment, sound intuition, every time I went to present to this particular this is the hiring manager that hired me, he will get so defensive. And in my head, I'm like, you hired me to do a job and you're getting defensive when I'm basically, I'm trying to understand how you guys have been doing things, what hasn't been working, and then trying to suggest ways to make it better. And one fateful day, I presented to him and he started shouting at me. This man was shouting. You know how I know he was shouting? He was shouting so much that his glasses was moving because it was very animated and he hit his glasses. Yes, it was and it was just me and him. So there's no witnesses. But I knew that this day of reckoning would come. I knew. If it was 20-something Toya, I will tell him to fuck himself. I will argue with him. I'll tell him you are whatever name came to my head. I will slam the door, do one EastEnders drama, pack my bag and go. But who's really trying to do that in this economy where everyone's trying to make money? No. I allowed him to off his mind. When it offed his mind, I said to him, I'm not sure why you think it's acceptable to behave this way and talk to me in a tone that can only be described as disrespectful. But you hired me to do a job, and this is the job I'm doing. If the scope has changed, that's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, the scope has remained the same. Therefore, if you're not happy with my approach, then I suggest you find a professional way to tell me. But this level of aggression is quite threatening. You know, you have to use the words that the white people use. And very aggressive. I closed my laptop, I closed everything, and I walked out. When I got to my desk, hi Matthew, further to our meeting, I did want to confirm with you the scope of this work because your behavior was quite unacceptable and quite concerning with the level of aggression you were showing, when I was merely trying to show you not only the scope of work that I'm doing, but the reasoning behind why I'm doing it. After all, this is what you brought me in for. And whilst I can understand that it would be quite uncomfortable to see some of the things that are going wrong in the department, you hired me to put them right. So in order to enable me to do that, I need to make sure that we're on the same page, because I do not want an episode of what happened to happen again, because I felt quite threatened. My dear, as soon as I hit send, the way this man flew over to my desk like Superman. Toya, can I talk to you in the kitchen, please? I went, yeah. Because I'm so sorry. It's just, my train journey. I'm traveling all the way from Cornwall. It was just really stressful. You're still talking about your train journey at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I just stood there looking at him. Do you know why? Number one, I know me. I don't care. I don't care. I've now created an audit trail. So if you move mad again, we're going to have a problem, because that's a pattern of behavior. But more importantly, in you not responding to that email and rather taking me to one side, you're basically admitting everything that I've said. I cannot be provoked. It's not going to happen. I would rather leave if I get so close to provocation than to be in a workplace and be provoked and walk into the stereotypes that white people have built for us to limit us and our own success. White people provoking black people is a systematic approach to oppression. It's a form of oppression, because they feel like if they provoke us, they can oppress us, right? Because then they can use their white privilege to ensure they put us back in our place as they see it. I'm telling you right now, if you protect your energy in your personal life, develop a sense of self and understand who you are, and develop an understanding and an awareness, and proactively work on your ability to discern, you will be able to do the same in the workplace and be able to navigate the workplace safely and be able to flourish. I'm not saying when you go into the workplace you won't hit some hurdles, but it's the way you manage and deal with those hurdles. You spend more time at work than you do at home, but you're more invested in your personal life. So why don't you ensure that the key skills that you need to develop in your personal life, you actively work to develop them, because it will make your work in life easy. You're able to spot people who are enemies of progress. You're able to spot people who don't have your best interests at heart at work. You're able to go into the office and understand who are the troublemakers, or maybe it's your boss, and understanding how to manage and navigate your boss. And in previous episodes we've spoken about that. But there is a lot of work that we have to do in self to be able then to turn up to work as ourselves and walk in our path and our purpose, being able to have and ensuring we have a developed self of discernment. It's crazy to me that when you are literally at peace with yourself, the devil then will try everything possible to push you off scale. And I feel like where I'm at in my life right now, I'm a Libran, isn't it? So I'm always seeking balance. But I look at my friends and I feel really proud that on the journey of finding good friends, God has blessed me with amazing friends. And they're not perfect, but their imperfections just reinforce the fact that they're humans too. My imperfections reinforce the fact that I'm human. But when you identify the imperfections in your friends, you work on compromise, right? You learn how to communicate. You show a level of love, and you cover their imperfections with that love. And I can honestly say that when I found peace in myself was when I knew who I was. And when I was walking through the wilderness of life and the career wilderness, it was a dark and lonely time. But I know all that experience has brought me to this point. So when I walk into the workplace, I do so fearlessly. And it's a fearlessness that has come with age, experience, and I believe wisdom. But I will always say that the journey is never an easy one, but let it be the journey that you have chosen to go on. You have to make a choice in life, many choices in life, sorry. But in relation to discernment, the choice that you have to make is, if I'm going to trust in my judgment, I have to trust myself to make good decisions, to ensure that I have the right energy around me. And then when I have it, protect it. Because you're going to have to pull on all that strength when you walk into the wild jungle that is the workplace. So for many of you who have written in with your dilemmas and around kind of friendships and kind of growing in your careers and things like that, I will deal with it in an up and coming episode. It was just important that I deal with discernment as an episode on its own, especially in light of these really weird emails that I received from Harriet. But I'm going to leave you with this. Picture yourself as a tree, the most glorious tree. And as you go through life, some of those leaves on that tree withers away. As those leaves wither away and fall on the ground, you enter new seasons. And with those new seasons come new leaves, stronger leaves. You continue to flourish as the rain falls, replenish, because the earth doesn't just take, it gives. And with every season comes a new fall of leaves. But what can be trusted is that you will continue to grow, and new leaves will grow from your tree. In order to ensure that your tree continues to grow, you have to protect your tree by ensuring that your tree is watered, fed, loved. The ultimate goal is to be a healthy tree where leaves continue to grow, seasons come and go, but your tree stays strong. As my father used to say, those who have ears, let them hear. And as my cousin says, those who do not hear will feel. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for committing to this episode, committing to the podcast. I would always ask for you to share this podcast episode with whoever you feel needs to hear it. Share the platform and the podcast as a whole to those people you believe need to hear it. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting the Toy Talks platform. And thank you for supporting the Toy Talks podcast. To follow me on social media, Twitter handle is Toya_W. Instagram handle is Toya_Washington. The podcast Instagram handle is Toya_Talks. My Snapchat handle is Toya Washington, all one word. If you wish to send me a dilemma, please email hello@toyatalks.com. I want to thank each and every one of you. Those of you who are listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. We're currently at 5-star. I read all your reviews and I thank you always for your support, whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on. My name is Toya Washington and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.